Some of the biggest home buyer regrets in Charlotte happen in neighborhoods that people are most excited to move to, and buyers don't even realize it until after they've already bought the house. Today, we're going to talk about where people regret buying homes in Charlotte and the mistakes that led to it. If we haven't met yet, my name is Cameron, and one thing I always tell people is this. In Charlotte, choosing the right neighborhood matters almost more than choosing the right house. And that's because Charlotte isn't one type of city. It's a collection of very different areas, and each one offers a completely different lifestyle. One of the biggest regrets buyers experience in Charlotte has nothing to do with the house, it's the commute. When people first start looking at homes here, they usually focus on price and space. And when they search online, they'll notice that homes farther outside the city often look like a better deal. You might see a beautiful 3,000 square foot house for the same price as a much smaller home closer to the city. And that trade-off can feel very tempting, but what many buyers underestimate is how Charlotte traffic patterns actually work. A lot of people moving here work in or around uptown Charlotte or South Charlotte business districts. If you live north of the city near Lake Norman in areas like Mooresville, Huntersville, or Cornelius, your commute will often involve Interstate 77. And I-77 is one of the most talked about highways in the region when it comes to traffic. A drive that looks 20 minutes on a map can easily stretch to 45 minutes or more during peak commute times. On the other side of the city, buyers moving into outer areas of Union County or parts of Cabarrus County sometimes run into similar surprises depending on where they work. So the regret usually isn't the house, it's realizing that the lifestyle trade-off between space and commute wasn't fully understood before the purchase. Before committing to an area, actually test the commute during real traffic hours. Another situation where buyers sometimes feel regret is when they purchase in a neighborhood that is heavily hyped online. Charlotte has several neighborhoods that get a lot of attention on social media and relocation videos. Places like South End, NoDa, Plaza Midwood are incredibly popular, and for good reason. They offer walkability, restaurants, nightlife, and a strong sense of culture. But sometimes buyers move into these areas expecting one type of lifestyle, and they discover that it feels very different once they're actually living there. For example, South End is one of the most energetic neighborhoods in Charlotte. There are breweries, apartments, restaurants, and constant activity. But that also means it can get noisy, busy, and heavily populated, and it's a lot of younger residents. For someone in their early 20s or 30s, that environment might feel perfect. But for someone who's looking for quiet evenings and a slower pace, it might feel overwhelming. And whereas you might love spending time in the neighborhood during the weekend, living there might not be the best decision. So the regret here usually isn't that the area is bad, it's that the lifestyle didn't match the expectation. A third situation where buyers sometimes experience regret is when they buy in an area that is still very early in its development cycle. Charlotte is a growing city and growing quickly. With new growth corridors constantly emerging, you'll hear people talk about areas being up and coming or the next big thing, and sometimes those predictions turn out to be correct. But development timelines don't always happen quickly, and oftentimes they take longer than what people expect. A buyer might move into a neighborhood expecting restaurants, retail, commercial spaces, and things like that to follow quickly, only to discover that those plans may take 5 to 10 years to fully materialize. During that time, the area can feel a bit unfinished, and Charlotte has several large development projects underway right now that could reshape parts of the city over the next decade. But when buying in a developing area, it's important to approach those opportunities with the right time horizon. Development-driven appreciation usually takes time, so keep that in mind, as one of the most interesting things about Charlotte is how dramatically neighborhoods can change within just a few miles. You can drive 10 minutes and go from a dense urban environment to a quiet suburban community. And for example, areas like Ballantyne feel very different from neighborhoods like Dilworth or SouthPark. Ballantyne offers newer homes, planned communities, and a suburban lifestyle, whereas Dilworth offers historic homes, tree-lined streets, and walkability that's also convenient and close to uptown. Now, SouthPark, on the other hand, is known for luxury homes, high-end shopping, and major corporate offices, and each of these areas is going to attract a different type of buyer. Something I would ask yourself is whether you enjoy when things feel busy and that life gives you energy, or you're more interested in escaping after work to somewhere quiet and calming. Sometimes regret happens simply because someone didn't spend enough time exploring different parts of the city before deciding where to live. Rather, they fall in love with an area after spending weekends there, but ignore other aspects to calling a place your home. Another area where buyers sometimes run into issues is school district expectations. Charlotte is served by Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools, or CMS, which is a very large school system and many different school zones. Some buyers assume that because you are in a certain side of town, that means you'll be zoned for a specific school, and that is not the case. And especially as the Charlotte area grows, the district lines get chopped up more and more. That's why it's always important for buyers to research school assignments early in the home search process if schools are going to be a priority for you. Now, do not take what's granted for what's being shown on Zillow or other online websites, because they're not always accurate and they're not always listed accurately from the listing agent themselves. So it is the buyer's responsibility, especially here in North Carolina, that is a buyer beware state, to conduct your own due diligence. So make sure you do that. What I would do is I would go on the school website and pull up on the map to ensure that the areas you're looking at are within the school zones you want to be in. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Most people who regret where they bought in Charlotte didn't necessarily make a bad financial decision. They just made a bad lifestyle decision. And they did that because they didn't have enough information. The key is understanding commute patterns, neighborhood culture, development timelines, and how different parts of the city actually feel day to day. So if you're thinking about making a move to Charlotte and want help figuring out which neighborhoods truly match your lifestyle and goals, feel free to reach out to me. And if you want the opposite of this type of video, I made a video about the fastest growing areas in Charlotte. And if you want more areas breaking down the Charlotte neighborhoods and market trends, make sure to subscribe. See you next time.